Hey everybody, welcome to the nightly vid. It's coming out a little late. It will be kind of long here tonight just because we're doing it live. So you can skip to the end to get the gist. But starting with the indexes. So SPY 2 up to start the week. You'll see it confirmed the 2 we identified on Friday with Thursday night's vid. So go watch that. You'll know what to be looking at. If we go to the Qs, same thing, or 2 boom, hits its magnitude. So now the question is, do we go 2 down on a Tuesday, SPY and Qs, or not? We are coming towards the end of the quarter still, so we can still expect some kind of shuffling around of the indexes. Dow Jones also started 2 up as a momentum hammer, which tells you industrials potentially, as well as transports. We got IWM 2 up and red, so potentially if we do turn around Tuesday to the downside, it's not a bad setup. You'll see the futures for IWM look like a rev strat. So if that kicks in tomorrow, something we could definitely talk about. And how would we know? Well, you can see, right? We're going sideways. So what we like to see, if we're going to break that daily signal, is this. We'd like to see they sell, they buy, we sell, right? Something like this. Maybe it goes higher, something like that. If they're going to buy it, it could, just tick down and they bring them to the highs and keep going, which may happen. However, what we'd prefer to see is go down first tomorrow, keep going sideways overnight, and then reclaim going the other way if they're going to be buying it. We'll see what comes of it, but that's how we want to think. That being said, let's go and take a look at some of the leaders, because there is a few names, and some of the setups. So to start the week, we have Hood leading. You'll see the 2 reversal. Notice everything was green. So yeah, those sellers had some issues. We will see Coin 2 reversal, and you'll see triangle layout, lower low, boom. So they have some issues there. Potentially 2 weak, and setting up to continue next month with MicroStrategy. Potentially the hammer month setting up as your broad information here. Potentially the 2 week, and it did go inside up. So we'll see if they follow through on that, which tells you Bitcoin. And then a pretty nice move. Now they did go into recent highs here, or higher highs. So we'll see if that holds. They're still not a 2 up week yet. They're still, looks like inside. Actually, no, they're a slight 2 down on the month. So we'll see. Ripple is going to be very similar, kind of just slight 2 down, but green. If you go to some of the other leaders, you'll see tech in here. So tech is a 2 week to the upside, the 2 month as well, and a 2 quarter for next month. You got momentum hammer there in the materials. If we go to CYTK, see long green bars in here, inside week up. So we'll see if that buyer comes back. Notice long green bars. We like that, right? Because that buyer might have more to buy. And before I forget, let me get the Monday night vid inside. All right, here we go. Just make sure we get the leaders written down before I keep going. So I have CYTK, Hood. Etsy was also leading, which we missed on the weekend vid. That's my bad since I didn't do too much scanning. You'll see this nice inside week. Notice how that broke, right? Goes inside in red the day in the week. Traps some sellers, boom, breaks here, everyone's a buyer, and they just take them out. This is actually something we discussed in the Discord down in here with our 2 week after the lower low. So it's just going, and there it is, 40%. The bigger that range is, the better. We'll see if they continue to follow through. They had a nice inside day to trigger that as well this week, so very cool stuff. There is Co, which I'm not sure about options there, but you got the 2 week, the 2 month, 2 quarter, which you will exhaust those quarterly and monthly signals. So just be aware of that in a couple days here on Wednesday. All right. We also have Carvana in here. You'll see potentially the 2 week to the upside. Something we would like to know about, right? And this could go 2 up continuation month, 3 2 up continuation quarter, 2 up again. So we'll see. We'll have Shopify in here in the discretionary. So we'll group Shopify, Carvana, Etsy together, as they seem to be moving together in your consumer cyclicals. Looks like SPHR is also going to be that. Really nice quarterly there. See the lower low and then boom. That's what we look for. There will also be, we have the new quarter coming soon, so we don't want to get too crazy, getting down into the leaders list. We'll just stick with that. On the bearish side of things, you've got neg. Very nice weekly PMG down in here. You got about 30% of magnitude. So what you could do is go look at those 30 puts, 30.00 puts for the weeklies or even monthlies. I'm not sure what they got. But when you have these pivots, as long as we're below last week's lows, that's a good short in our book. We also do see things like QUBT leading the downside, which is RGTI and QBTS as well. Now, they aren't inside week down yet, and they could reclaim that, so we'll be aware of it. But they start the week shooter day down, and they have some range to come back through. We'll see. As far as their earnings and stuff, these companies aren't making shit. So when you look at this, right, would it be crazy to say we might take out some of these lows with profit taking after this kind of momentum rally we've seen in these guys? No, right? And then we may recover again. So get these broad informations drawn out, set your alerts on there, or just make sure it's on a focus list for you to come back through and maybe come back through again to the downside. And then we'll see, energies, XLE/XOP, just be like your XOM. SEDG, which is your solar energies. So we'll see maybe those guys come back in too. We did see uraniums go inside day. So we may see some of the uranium kind of renewable type stuff. SM is in the uraniums too. They came back in today pretty good. So we'll see if we get the follow through there. And there will be some energy setups, I imagine, as far as the dailies are concerned. I believe that is about it. Wow, NNE is a pretty decent setup in the utilities. But we'll cover it there. There's not too much to talk about on the downside of things. You got stuff like Heart, which is getting wrecked. But again, we have these new quarters coming, so we just got to be aware of that. Things can change Wednesday. And we could be selling. Quarter opens, and they're done. So we'll see. As far as setups go now, if you're skipping, here's when we talk about setups. Starting with the inside bar setups. ATR high to low, as always. So S&PS, you see they're starting to get a little tight in there. They could trigger the week down if things are weaker. As a 1-2-2 rev strat. That still has a good magnitude, so maybe. We'll see. I'll put a question mark there. LEU. And energies, that's your uraniums as well. Meta. Ooh, Meta inside day. That breaks up. We like that. If it does break down, it is one of the weaker tech type names, so it could continue this week. Inside day to trigger continuation. Goldman Sachs tells us look at XLF Financials, which is Momentum Hammer. Morgan Stanley. Yep. Bank of America. Yep. What about Citigroup? Yep. So you'll have XLF, you'll have Goldman Sachs, BAC, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan. Not quite. CoreWeave. So this one was on the weekend vid list for a downside name. Inside day shooter could trigger that. You got daily pivot machine gun down and left to take out, and then 2-2 week with some magnitude to take out. In this case, we talked about this, right? We can short the downside. However, we'd want to see this. Get that broadening formation coming through. Right? And I drew that really stupidly, but it's going to, something like this. I'm more interested in to trigger the month up, but we'll see. United Health Group went 3 last week. Now inside day, which could trigger the week. Also 322 quarter. So this is a good quarterly name. Definitely want to know about that next quarter. So if you want to get in there earlier, inside day might be able to do it for you. We did see healthcare's momentum hammer on the day. So XLV, UNH. Let's see, Nets in there inside day. Now, if that breaks up, it would have a period of full time frame continuity. More healthcare names, MOH. You see, is this close to recovering like UNH is? Not quite. Right, maybe it does. Inside day a little stronger than UNH as it's already going up. Amgen, another healthcare name. You know, at best, maybe it sets up an inside week for next week. It is the bottom of a 3, so lower low than the inside date. So it's something we look for. If we go to XLV. Oops. Star next to it because a daily triangle is going to help you set things up. So if this works, right, 3-2 week reversal or sets up inside for next week. So we'll see. Triple M in your Dow Jones. Let's see it. Doji's galore. It is at the bottom of this broadening formation. However, we're still stuck inside of here. Right, and you can see, so they tick down. Lower highs, higher lows, higher highs, takes them all out. The higher low. Shoot a reversal, boom, and then lower high, higher low, and slight higher high, slight lower low. You can see that triangle's restarting in here. So we would target into this. You're just tight, which we don't prefer. Ooh, BDX. I'm not sure what they do. Let's see. Medical supplies and medical equipment. So it's in your healthcares. I like that. Right? I'm not sure as far as options go. But BDX, we'll put a star next to that. Let's see. Hinge Health. Another healthcare name. Look at that. Got some broadening information to work with here. The daily, it's going to look like this. So inside day, the bottom of the range, however, conflict with higher time frames. And I don't want to forget, I want to throw NVTS on the monthly list. I don't know if I did yesterday. All right. EPLD. Inside day. So this is one of the leaders we like. That would occur with continuity after a shooter last week. So any shorts in here, they might be early. Inside day could bring them the other way. That is your like technology type thing. We like that. Let's start next to it. Got more healthcare as Merrick Health, MRK. Just slightly higher lows still. We'd prefer lower lows. CSAP could be a good one for the smaller account guys with full time from continuity. It's only a 1% on that PMG, but it would trigger an inside week, setting up a monthly. You go to Staples. You do have a momentum hammer, so a lot of momentum hammers for tomorrow. We did see some stuff from our weekend vid, like Monster Energy to the upside. We also saw HIMS break up. It didn't, just barely stayed up there, so we'll see. think that's good for inside days. There's things like Lucid, I don't want to forget. Inside day, long green bars and bigger time frames. And this is one we definitely want to know about next month for the 2-2 or even a 3-2, because it's coming off the all-time lows here. It was mentioned by a member on the 2-week here, and we did alert on that. It's up 20% as of now. The inside bar would be an add signal. GRPN. I always think it's Groupon, and it is. Cool. So 3 last month. Didn't really go anywhere to the downside. PMG to the upside with the daily to trigger the week. Okay. Like that. We'll throw a star next to it for the small account guys for sure. You'd like to know that. All right, we're starting to get into some of the, nobodies in here, so we'll leave it at that for the inside days. 2 up in red, we have 176 names. I'm going to sort that by the reddest, so we can see the ones that are really red. We already saw a Solar Edge here. A Lab, setting up the monthly signal. SMR in the utilities. For the PMG down, ooh. And if we see the market really go up tomorrow, which could happen if we open as 2s up or if we trigger 2s up, we may see some utility stuff come back, right? If they're going back into the tech. As we saw, the Utes, you see they firmed up in here, bringing them all up. It does have a momentum hammer. While that's happening, you see tech, not that really aggressive buying. It hasn't recovered here yet. So if we do see them start really getting after that, we could see utilities bring in. So we always keep that in mind. Outside of that, man, there's not too much. Let's see. TEM in the healthcares. Could go 3-2 week, could go 3-2 month. We'll see that for next month. We love the look of that. Right? Reclaim of all this stuff with the shooter month. Okay. Yeah, there's not too much. The short semiconductor ETF, Soxol, is setting up. So those semis could bring them back in if we go to SMH. Or no, not short, my bad. Long semis. So let's see, NVIDIA. Maybe as a rev strat. AMD. Maybe as a shooter. Marvell. A little bit. MU. Not so much. EVGO. 3. A little bit weaker. ASML. Little bit. So maybe we see those. I'm not going to include it on the list. I guess I can. Semis. We'll just go AMD, NVIDIA, question mark. Depends on if we're weak tomorrow or not. The short VIX futures are 2 up in red. VIX went inside day, so we'll definitely want to know about the VIX inside day. Either we go 3-2 weak to the downside, or they try and get back out of the 3 again, above 1677. So either side of this day gets our attention and helps you when you're trading the SPY and stuff. And let's say like SPY gaps down or something and the VIX gaps up. It could go 3 to the downside, right? Or VIX gaps down, SPY gaps up slightly, and then VIX starts racing back. Could see things try and change. So we'll just be aware of that VIX inside day for sure going into tomorrow. Oops, sorry about this. Yeah. Dan Amba. Yeah, a lot of daily signals, which could trigger weeklies. Just a lot of these are, you know, not very close to setting up, like Marvell. Right, the RevStrat day. It's already an outside month, so maybe it does come back. But what's it going to set up? Right? Maybe a weekly for next week. Maybe it goes outside week. So just a little tricky in there. Just not too much. Sort by dollar change, the biggest losers, and see. We see too much to talk about here. So we'll leave it at that for the downside of things. 2-2 to the downside. That's what we're going to be looking at as far as 2 down in green. Very few names on that list. Most things were a 2 up today, which if we do look at the stats, see how the stats about 60% of the market was up. Energy's 80% down. So definitely selling in energies, definitely some buying in materials. You see a lot of those were red though. Financials were a little weaker. So you have to reverse about half the market tomorrow if we're going to have a big puke, which is why we see very few 2 down in greens, maybe MasterCard in there. Bottom of this big daily broadening formation here. Could kick them back through if those financials firm up. Visa, 3 to the upside today. Maybe it gets better. You can see broadening formation's bigger here. However, they did not make the new lows to this. They're making higher lows, trying to make higher highs. Some healthcare names, a lot of nobodies, you know, people, not people, but stocks not as accustomed to trading. Gosh, one thing that's awesome is silver. We called for all-time highs. It's still going. Good stuff. Yeah, that's really about it. Short VIXy stuff is 2 down in green, so we'll see. As far as threes go today, Netflix had a big old 3. However, Doji right back in the middle. So how you getting out of this baby, right? GEV 3 could trigger the weekly RevStrat as a 1-3-2. So maybe they bring them in. I want the long green ones, long red ones. GMAB. That's something that's interesting. Look at this baby. Whew. That's a PMG if I've ever seen one, huh? So maybe it keeps going next quarter. You got these pivots still to go after. Got the 3-2. Put that star next to it. We love this because when you close outside the previous range, it's resolving in one direction with everyone buying. So we like that. Let's see, Visa. Could say the same thing about that. However, you got some distance to trigger the week. Few utilities on there, EXC, AWK. So we're going to see them follow through or see them come back through those threes with like 260s at the open tomorrow. That's a possibility. Not very many bright green threes that I'm seeing here. What about bright red? Just Upstart. And you see they got wrecked. Look at this. 2-2. Full time from continuity to the month. Changes the quarter and year. Inside bar momentum. There's dead. What about a firm? Yeah, firm's also not having a good time. TMO. PGY. A little bit more interesting setting up for next month. I guess we'll add Upstart to the down list as far as momentum goes. Before I forget. Sure what SWKS does, but here's your broadening formation. 2-2 week to time it. The big old 3. All right, so we will leave it at that. This is what we're going to be seeing going into tomorrow. Here's your leaders. Here's your quarterly setups. UNH, I'm just mentioning. As we're getting closer to the quarter, we're just going to keep looking at those and see what we see. But this is what we got. So I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning for Tuesday morning stream. And if you're interested, check us out at stratalerts.ai. Adios, everyone. I'll see you then.